Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel. I am Jimmy Smith, and thanks for stopping by for a WSET Level 4 Diploma video. This is on wine production. This is the growing environment on sunlight. This is part 2. So this will be available as free content on YouTube, also available on the e-learning portal. All videos after this part will only be available on the e-learning portal at winewithjimmy.com. So please go and visit that to look at the wealth of information and videos that we have available to help you through your wine studies. If you do have any comments, questions or concerns, please do get in touch by either commenting on this video on the YouTube, which is just below here. Make sure you subscribe as well, but you can also get in touch via social media that you see at the bottom of every slide, or directly through the www.winewithjimmy.com website at the e-learning portal. Okay, so we are looking at sunlight part 2, and this is the effects of sunlight. So beforehand on part 1, we were looking at temperature and sunlight, but now we're going into the effects of it. So it was the effects of temperature on part 1, the effects of sunlight on this one. So the vine is very much dependent on sunlight. It is in need of sunlight, of course, for photosynthesis. And really, it is needed for 3 main areas. It needs it for vine growth. It needs it for grape berry formation, flowering and fruit set, for example, and ripening. So vine growth, grape berry formation, and ripening. So that's what we're looking at just here. So, of course, we know that we need sunlight. We need sunlight to power photosynthesis, but we don't need all of the sunlight. It's not completely all needed for a vine to survive, a vine to live and produce grapes. So full sunshine, intense, that is not blocked by cloud, is not required, as I mentioned. But generally, sunlight is only the limiting factor when the amount of sunshine available drops below about 1/3 of full sunshine. So that will impact photosynthesis. So as long as you have above 1/3 of full sunshine, then you will be okay. Cloud cover then generally is not too much of a problem, because of clouds don't tend to stay around for too long. They move on depending on the wind, and there often are breaks in the cloud as well, which means that you often will be able to get the appropriate amount of sunlight even with some cloud cover. But fog, on the other hand, which I've identified here in this picture, of course, you've got both cloud cover and fog. Fog is one that can slow photosynthesis because it will limit the amount of sunlight. So it can be an issue, fogs, but of course they don't tend to also be around too long either. So what about sunlight in reference to the anthocyanins and the methoxypyrazines? So that's what we've got here. We have a picture on the left-hand side of someone rather funnily crushing a bunch of grapes and releasing the juice. But the reason why we've got that picture there is that you'll see the color which is staining that person's hand. And that is from the anthocyanin. The anthocyanin being the pigmentation, the color pigments. So the grape, when it has exposure to more sunlight, will increase and enhance the development of those anthocyanins, so those color pigments, which is important, of course, certainly for red wine production. So that will be in black grapes. And then also we have the reduction of methoxypyrazines. So here you have an arrow going down to show you the decreasing aspect of this. So more sunlight will mean the decreasing amount of methoxypyrazines, which are these very green, peppery, asparagus-y, herbaceous, grassy characters, which are found in most grapes as an aroma precursor. When the fermentation occurs, these flavors can come out, and if they haven't been decreased, and if they haven't been sort of dispersed by sunlight, then you will have greater volumes of this, and they're often much greater volumes just after veraison. So it's very important that the grape berry ripening means that this will be decreased by the time it is harvested. Sometimes these characteristics are wanted sometimes, and for certain varieties, they are picked early to retain these methoxypyrazine characteristics. You will find these characteristics can be found in many styles of wines. Of course, vintages that have a lack of sunlight will display more of these. And in areas where sunlight is less intensive, maybe like the Loire Valley, you'll find it in things like Cabernet Franc quite intensively there, those methoxypyrazine green tomato stalk characteristics. So what about the effects of sunlight in terms of tannin? So sunlight in reference to tannin. So what we have talked about previously, if you have watched previous videos on wine production, is how and when tannin starts to form. So what we've got here is a very simple chart to show you tannin. Now, this is a very basic chart, which is also quite an average chart. You will have differing levels of this curve, steeper, less steeper, depending on the variety and, of course, the microclimate. But if we take this bottom area, which says fruit set just down here, so if we take fruit set, this, of course, is after flowering, successful fruit has developed, depending on how successful the flowering is. And then we start to increase the volume of tannin. So from fruit set to veraison, which is color change, we have that increase of tannin. So this is pre-veraison. Post-veraison is the polymerization of those tannins. Really the kind of development of those tannins. So if there are less sunlight, if there's less sunlight available during this stage, which of course is post-veraison, but you've had plenty of sunlight available during summer pre-veraison, then you'll have a very poor development, a very poor polymerization of the tannin, which causes, of course, more astringent and what we would call bitter tannins to be found within the wine. So it is important that the season is there to polymerize those tannins after veraison. So often, if you look at Cabernet Sauvignon in Bordeaux, the summers are often quite consistent. Thankfully, they're not always remarkably bright. Otherwise, they may have issues fully developing those tannins, but you need a long season to do this. The polymerization takes longer than grape sugar accumulation. So therefore, you need those longer seasons well into October, of course, down in Bordeaux to really fully develop those tannins. Okay, so that's a little bit on tannin. Then we have around aroma, precursors, and compounds. So now we know that sunlight has a positive effect on aroma precursors, and precursors, remember, are those that are found within grapes, but will be liberated, really. They will be developed during fermentation. And then there are compounds, which are already found in those grapes as well. So we know that that more increased amount of sunlight will increase the volume of favorable precursors and compounds, such as terpenes, which we have here, which provides some grape varieties with the grapey and floral characteristics, very classically like muscat, for example. So that's what you've got in this picture, grapes and lots of floral characteristics in there. Types of terpenes are things like geraniol, which is what gives the kind of rosy characteristic, and that comes through in the fermentation. And some varieties have very high amounts of that specific terpene. Let me scribble these down, by the way, because I want you to have the information of these. Okay, so let's go here. Oops. Here we go. Oops, there you are. So geraniol, that's one. We have another, which is linalool. Linalool is, let's pop this just here. So this is what may give you that distinctive sort of edge of lavender. Sometimes violet, they say as well. You may notice it actually in white varieties such as Chenin Blanc, varietals of muscats as well. Certainly if they have both of these types of terpenes, geraniol and linalool as well. Then there is one called citronellol as well, which is a little bit of an easier one to remember as a terpene. This one is, of course, the citrus-like aroma, which you find in things like Chardonnay, in Rieslings and Chenin Blanc. And then we have a last one here, which is known as nerol, but its actual name here is aterpenol. I'll put nerol here in, whoops, in brackets. Oh gosh. Okay, nerol. Yeah, this one is, you'll find in things like Torontes. It's a kind of aromatic kick you'll find. It's like more of a greener characteristic. You find in Pinot Grigio as well. So there are a number of terpenes that will be increased by sunlight, by the increase of sunlight within the ripening. And what about the link to acidity? Well, this one's quite easy to understand, as we've mentioned this a couple times previously, but sunshine warms the grapes, and because of this, it increases the rate of which malic acid is used up in grape respiration. So in respiration, this means that there is more malic acid used, and that leads to lower acidity levels, and certainly towards the end of the season. Sunshine in late spring as well as early summer is associated with successful fruit set, which occurs at that time. So that means it gives stable conditions for more higher successful percentages of fruit set, as you'll see in this picture. But also the exposure of the compound buds, which sit between the stem and the leaf petiole of a major shoot, a main shoot. These are the ones that store all of the information really for the next year, because they will burst the next year. So with good sunlight at this time, that actually promotes good fruitfulness within those compound buds sitting in between the stem and the leaf petiole, the stalk that attaches the leaf to the main stem. So that increases fruitfulness. And then we have something on sunlight hazards. Prolonged periods of sunshine and hot temperatures, of course, can lead to sunburn on these on sun-exposed grapes. Which will, of course, have a potential for negative effects on both yield and quality of the grapes. So grape transpiration is much more limited and therefore less effective than leaf transpiration. So therefore, as a result, grapes can reach higher temperatures because they're not transpiring as quicker as a leaf with all of its stomata. It's able to open those stomata and transpire quicker. The grape cannot do that. So therefore it becomes hotter, quicker, and it can burn, of course, more quicker as well. Sunburn will lead to scars on the skin of the grape, and in extreme cases, the death of the grape as well. In picture A on the left-hand side, you'll see a faint amount of sunburn on the grapes. In this instance, that browning of the grape creates a bitter taste. And also, if it's in excess of that, like in picture B, it can burn and lead to splitting, as you can see here, and rotting, which has occurred on picture B. And that is another potential issue of that. So, of course, the climates that are hot, warm, hot, and dry will be the problematic areas for this. Often, though, you can work with canopy management for shading of the fruit to try and mitigate this, of course. So that's quite a key point. Okay, so that is the effects of sunlight, which followed the effects of temperature. Next, we look at latitude, and this is going into really the natural factors that affect the sunlight. And so we're going into latitude. This is available only for the members of my e-learning portal at winewithjimmy.com. So you'll have to go and sign up if you wish to follow the rest of the videos. And there will be 9 parts in the growing environment only on sunlight. So these 2 parts have been free, parts 1 and 2, and 3 through to 9 will only be available on the e-learning portal. Once again, if you do have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do pop them in the comments section below this video on YouTube, or get in touch via social media, or get in touch via the Wine with Jimmy website. So I've been Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much for dropping by. If you do find yourself in the wonderful old town of London town, come and see us at the school or the bar. So come and see us for a class, a glass, or a bottle. My name's Jimmy Smith. Thank you so much.